Hi everybody, gonna have another go at one of our fabric collages. We're gonna do the badger. I can't remember what I called it, badger at something, didn't I? But it's the badger one anyway. It's this guy. I'm doing it slightly differently this time from how I usually do it. I usually make it on the box canvas that I am going to put it onto. But I'm increasingly finding that I'm not giving it enough edges around the sides, so that when I come to put my binding, so that there's enough to go right the way around the back, I haven't got enough, and I've got little gaps and stuff. So what I'm trying to do this time is, this is my pattern here. You can see it stops here all the way around. So that's the very top of my canvas. And then this bit that's coming down here is going to be round the edge. So I need to make sure my fabric goes all the way under. And then what I've done is I've just used some tape, binding bias tape, and I put a little bit of I'll just show you a little bit of my fusible on it, just to stick it down. And I've gone all the way around the edge with a small gap, so that's the gap that's going to be going down the side. So it's going to go sort of halfway down the side with the top, if you see what I mean. And then the bias tape will take over, so that I can then wrap it nice and easily and staple it nice and easily. The trouble is, if you use the fabric all the way around and try and staple the fabric on the back, sometimes it gets a bit difficult to do the stapling, because you've got lots of different pieces and it just gets more complicated. And also, I don't like putting my wadding round the sides, because it makes the corners too bulky. So by doing this, I can just have my wadding at the very top size, and then these sides with the bias tape will hold firm enough for me to stretch it round. I hope that makes sense. And I haven't done it before, so I've used the tape before, but I haven't done it this way before. So I'm doing the experiment, and I'll let you know how it goes. So as per usual, I've got my pattern at the bottom, I've got parchment paper on the top, greaseproof paper, and then obviously I've got these tapes on as well. So let's get on. Now, I made a horrible mistake, and I brought some what we call greaseproof paper over here in the UK, and it was a catering pack, and I thought, and you couldn't see what was inside, and I thought, oh, that's very cheap, I'll buy that. But unfortunately, it's not very good. Well, it's too good. It makes everything stick to it. So although I can pull the fabric off of it, it does get a bit tricky, and you can leave bits on. So I'm not using it on here. I'm using my normal parchment paper, which I know and feels different. You can feel it's got a much silkier, slidey top to it than this has. But I'm just using this stuff to cut out my patterns, and as you can see, it's quite opaque as well, so it's not that easy to use anyway. But I bought it, so I'm going to use it. Right, let me pull my sleeves up. In fact, let me take the jacket off. No, I can't take the jacket off because I've got the... Hold on, let me just move the speaker. There we go. That's better. Take the jacket off and then it's not in the way. Right, I'm going to start with this nice big black area going through here. So let me just see if I can move this down a bit so you can see a bit better. Right. Okay. And I'm stretching my very long arms right the way through the camera. So this should be a fairly simple pattern, apart from the eyes and round the nose and mouth bit. That bit will be slightly more tricky, but the rest of it is pretty easy, I think. And there's some nice big bits, so it shouldn't take too long. And it should look pretty cute. Right, so that's my first bit drawn round. I mean, it would have been better if I'd drawn it right over here on the edge, but it's not. So this is what my first piece is going to be. This is a Tim Holtz fabric, and it's one of my favourites. I love it because it's, you know, it's black, but it's got lots of stuff on it. It's a more interesting black. Right, so just hold it over the top of my fabric and cut around my shape. If you find holding and cutting difficult, then cut round the shape first. Pull back your fusible that's on the back of your fabric. Temporarily stick it just lightly with your iron, or if you can just do it by hand, depending on what product you're using, and then cut around it, and you don't have to hold it. But this is a fairly easy piece to cut out, so I can just hold it. Sometimes when you're holding it and it's a tricky bit, it can move and you then start to lose the shape that you're trying to cut out, so just be aware of that. Alright, so there's my first bit. Make sure I got the fusible coming away with it. There we go. So that's going to go in there. It's nice, I like that. I'm probably going to have quite a few patterns on this one, I think. It kind of lends itself to lots of patterns, this particular work. And now let me think, what am I going to do next? Should I think I'm going to go over here on this very white bit, because I want to make sure that I put a very white bit down, and then the other bits that are not quite so white, I'll be able to see, if you see what I mean, that they're not quite so white. That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? But I want my white piece to be as white as it can be. So this is what I'm using. It's a very white piece. Opposed to if I start then going to something like that, which is still white, but it's got pattern on it, so it just makes it a darker area of white. See what I mean? Right. I don't ever draw, well, I say I don't ever, occasionally I do. When they're very tricky pieces, I will occasionally draw it onto this pattern that I can see over the top, just to make it easier to cut out. But I don't tend to draw, outline it on the parchment paper, because my worry is whatever you use, whether you use a pencil or a pen, a lot of the time it will come through onto your fabric, and sometimes it will come literally all the way through, sometimes it just goes on the back. I mean, the only trouble I find with using pencil, which is what I do use all the time, is it can rub off and make your fingers a bit dirty, and then your fabric comes a bit dirty and it gets all a bit grubby. But the trouble with pens is then you don't leave it, they can often rub on, especially on the greaseproof paper, they'll rub away, and then you've got pen on your fingers. So there's no easy way around it, I don't think. Right, so that's going to go straight in there as my very white piece. I'm going to have another very white piece on the top of his nose. So this bit. Will that fit across there? Yes, it will. So I'm going to put that on. I'm going to do that bit next because I have a habit of using fabrics and then can't find them when I want to use it again. So I'm just going to go across. I'm leaning my board up on something, it's not very steady, so I apologise if it keeps moving about. There we go. Let's just tuck something else under there as well, might help. That's a bit better. Right on the edge of my fabric so I'm not wasting too much. Oh, I was trying to rip that off better than that, but never mind. Right, no, I don't need that bit. Now you can see it's just wandered across a bit, so I just need to bring it back in. I mean, it's not, when you're doing like these bigger bits, it doesn't matter so much anyway, because they're not particularly defining anything. You know, it's different when you're doing your eyes and everything. They have to be a bit more carefully cut out, but these bits, they're fine. If you're off a little bit, it's not going to make that much difference. I use Bondo Web, which I think is very similar to Wander Under, but you do have to temporarily stick it down with the iron. But it does still peel off very easily. It's just holds it enough to start putting everything together. Right, I'll move that. There we go. Can't really see that, can you? Because it's all white and it's on a white background. It'll emerge at some stage. Right, so I think I'm going to put that bit in there. Or should I go slightly darker? Just see what else I've got. That's quite nice. I do quite like that. This was just a piece of something. I think it might have been a curtain. And it's actually, the outside of it is, it's actually turned inside out because that side is darker than that side. But I thought that made a great grey. And light grey is very difficult to find, I find. What else have we got? I've got that. I'm not so keen on that bit. Got that. That's quite nice. I might use that somewhere else, maybe. Maybe down there. I think I'm going to stick to this one. I quite like that one. It's just different enough from the white. See if I've got enough of this. Which bit am I doing? Yeah, so this is slightly trickier shape. I'm going to put it under that white so I don't have to be that careful about where I'm going. There, but I do want a nice streak that comes across there. There we go. Cut out the trickier part first. While I'm holding it nice and steady in my hands. To make life easier, I'm just going to cut across there and come back to that. I'm going to lose a little bit of fabric, not much. There we go. All around. And it's going to come under this. So I've undercut that slightly, and if you can see, but you can see I've left a bit sort of around there, made it a bit smaller, but that doesn't matter because you then just make sure that this bit is bigger. It's not going to make that much difference. Don't panic if you suddenly find you haven't cut quite as accurately as you were hoping. It really won't make too much difference. Now, wondering about putting that in there. That's quite nice, isn't it? It's got a nice big hole in it, but that will seal together. That'd be all right, I think. But then I'm just wondering if I want to use this a bit more in on the moon and stuff. Or I could use it here, in this smaller area here. That might be better. Because I've got a lot pattern already there. I could maybe use a plainer piece in there. Yeah, let's do that. Although I've got this, haven't I? There's maybe too white in there now. Got a piece of this which is a bit more bluey grey, I think. Somewhere, I'll have to find it. But that might be better. So should I put that in there? It's just it is quite nice, isn't it? I quite like that. Yeah, let's do that. What we'll do is we'll draw around it and see how it fits on there. Because I don't want anything too purpley dark on there. Right, so that's, oops, sorry. Right, so that's the actual shape. Now let's see. Actually, I think that'd be okay. But I am going to do what I said before with this particular piece. I'm going to cut it out and then stick it on the back of my fabric because there's a lot of edges. There's a lot of edges on there. So let's cut it out, stick it on the back, and then cut it out again. Just trying to hold that and cut all those edges. I know it takes twice as long, but in the long run it will be more accurate and easy to do. if you find cutting difficult and you think these are going to be too difficult to cut, just put two together and have a bigger piece. It'll be fine. Right, so that then is that piece. So what I need to do is turn it over when I put it on here. Just give it a slight stick down, doesn't need much. It's not sticking up all over the place. And then round we go again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it off right across here, so I haven't got to hold on to all that fabric as well. That makes it easier. And then I just cut up into those bits. That's why I like actually making my patterns with a lot of straight lines, because it's so much easier to cut a straight line. She says it takes about 3 goes to get it out. There we go. Still got a few bits I want to hold on. I'll cut around that bit, that's why. There we go. And I've got that cut on that one, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful when I put it down to make sure that cut is sealed across. And then pull off this. Now you can see what I'm saying about this parchment paper not giving up quite as easily, and I hardly touched it with the iron, and that's the one that doesn't give up my fabric quite as easily, so I'm just using it to do the cutting with. So do, before you start using your parchment paper for the first time, do make sure that it's going to let your fabric back up again, because not all parchment papers are the same. I find the cheapest one I can get is actually the best one for me. Right, so there we go. Half hour's up. I've done quite a lot of it. You probably can't see that much of it because it's all mostly white. Let me see if I can just put something up there so you can see a bit better. What? There we go. So you can see that whole piece is done there, got across there. I'm going to fill in the rest of the body, and then I'll come back and we can do the eye and the nose, I think, and then we'll see about the background. Background's very simple, but we'll see how we get on. Right, so bye for now.